The Babylon Project was our last best hope for sci-fi, a self-contained podcast 1 hour long located on the internet, a place of fun and discussion for Babylon 5 fans everywhere, a shining beacon in cyberspace, all alone in the night. It was the dawn of the 20th anniversary of Babylon 5, the year the Great War to free Bab 5 came upon us all. This is the story of the last of the Babylon podcast. The year is 2016. The name of the place is the Babylon Project Podcast.
This is Maggie Egan, your ISN news anchor, and you're listening to the Babylon Project podcast.
Hi there, Babylon 5 fans. Raul and Jim back with you again for another wonderful episode of the Babylon Project podcast.
Oh, yeah.
How are you doing tonight, my friend?
Doing good. Managed to stay healthy. I'm not getting any illnesses, so I feel like ready to go.
Yep, I think I've made it through all the craziness of the past 2 months, and with any luck at all, I've got some normality returning to my life.
Normality? What is that?
Normality. That's the Raul version of normalcy.
Ah. Well, let me know when you experience that and what it's like.
If it happens, I'll let you know. Like I said, it seems to be returning. I know that implies it has been there once before, but if it was, it's been so long ago, I can't quite remember it.
Well, in education, I'll tell you what, chaos is the norm.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Now, what episode do we have tonight?
We are going to take a look at A Distant Star, episode number 4 of the second season.
As opposed to a near star?
Yeah, or a close-up star.
Or a dark star?
Or A Star is Born.
When do we get to do a white star?
That comes later.
Yes. Well, let's get a synopsis from you, my friend, and give us some basis to go from there.
All right, here it is.
Archive. Access. Initiated.
The EAS Cortez arrives at Babylon 5 to take on supplies. Captain Sheridan and the Cortez commander Jack Maynard have been friends for many years. Sheridan and Maynard get together and discuss the merits of their commands. Maynard gives Sheridan a moment of pause when he mentions that he always thought that he was meant to be in command of a ship and not working a desk job. Later, Garibaldi approaches Sheridan with a report about a string of shoplifting incidents, and Sheridan blows him off, telling Garibaldi that it is up to him to handle the small, unimportant security details. Later that evening, Maynard, Sheridan, Ivanova, as well as Gallus and Keffer from the Zeta Squadron have dinner together. When the subject of strange activity out on the rim comes up in conversation, Maynard admits that he did see a very large black ship for only a moment, and that it gives him chills whenever he thinks about it. When the Cortez is finished being resupplied, Sheridan sees Maynard off the station, and the Cortez enters the jump gate. Sheridan begins his duties of working his way through a large amount of paperwork and some minor diplomatic concerns with Ivanova. Sheridan, who is more than a little jealous of Maynard, admits to Ivanova that he thinks it might have been a mistake for President Clark to assign him to command a city in space rather than a starship, as he was trained to do. Meanwhile, the Cortez is deep in hyperspace when there is an explosion that causes the ship to drift off the hyperspace beacon, which could lead to the ship being lost forever. Captain Maynard orders that a distress signal be sent in hopes that someone hears it. The signal reaches Babylon 5, and Sheridan orders all Star Fury wings to be sent out to attempt a rescue. After, Sheridan briefs the Star Fury pilots that they are to stay in a formation that will form a chain to stay in contact with the beacon and lead the Cortez back. All the while, Babylon 5 continues to transmit a signal that will keep the Cortez in contact with the station. Sheridan assures Maynard that help is on the way. As Gallus and Keffer extend the chain into hyperspace, a shadow vessel appears, and as it goes by the Star Furies, it collides with one of them, destroying Gallus's ship and damaging Keffer's. Keffer figures that the damage to his ship is too extensive to allow him to return to the station, and with his communications offline, he begins firing his weapons in the same direction repeatedly to show the Cortez the way home. Maynard understands Keffer's message and reluctantly leaves Keffer behind to return to Babylon 5. Meanwhile, Sheridan is commiserating over the loss of his 2 pilots, when Delenn approaches him and offers her sympathies, and further explains that he is in the place that he needs to be. Keffer has lost contact with the beacon and gives up all hope when he again sees the shadow vessel and uses its trajectory as a reference to get himself home. In another plotline, Dr. Franklin finishes giving Garibaldi an exam and tells him that in order to speed his recovery, he needs to follow a special food plan that doesn't include many of his favorite foods. When Garibaldi explains that it is almost time for him to make his special meal called Bagna Cauda, Franklin tells him that he is absolutely not to have it after finding out what the ingredients are. Subsequently, Franklin also puts Sheridan on a food plan to help him lose some excess weight, and Ivanova also gets a food plan to help her broken leg heal. Neither is any happier at that prospect than Garibaldi is. When Franklin examines Delenn, she lets slip that she overheard that Garibaldi is talking about the arrival of his ingredients for Bagna Cauda. Later, Franklin catches Garibaldi as he secures what he needs for his dish. Garibaldi explains that he only has this dish once a year in honor of his father, who used to fix it for him on his birthday. Franklin relents and tells Garibaldi to make enough for 2. Later, in his quarters, Garibaldi treats Franklin to dinner. Also, in what is a plot fragment, Delenn meets with Tehran, who expresses concerns that he and the other Minbari on the station have over her transformation. Their concerns are over whether Delenn is actually still Minbari. Tehran warns that the others of her race will no longer follow her blindly and asks to send a representative to meet with the Grey Council, to which Delenn agrees.
Character files opened.
Thank you, Jim.
Ah, no problem.
So we've got some interesting people in this episode tonight.
Yes. We have 5 guest stars, 2 of which are kind of notable. The first is Russ Tamblyn. He plays Jack Menard,
and he is definitely a notable.
Yeah, the commander of the Cortez. He has credits dating back to 1948, 1 appearance in this episode of Babylon 5, and one of the notable sci-fi appearances would be Quantum Leap. But the guy has been in just about everything.
Do you count Twin Peaks as science fiction?
I don't know. I've never seen Twin Peaks.
Neither have I, but I know it's a weird one.
Yeah, he was in Gunsmoke. One thing that I thought was kind of interesting is that he was in West Side Story.
He wasn't just in West Side Story. He was Riff in West Side Story.
Yes.
Which is by far his most famous role.
Yeah.
I hate to say it. I hated the movie.
Oh.
Now that you notice I was specific. I hated the movie. I have paid to see West Side Story as a musical before. I've seen it performed live many times. I love it live.
Yeah.
It's probably why I'm not that fond of the movie.
Well, living out here in central Nebraska, we don't get a whole lot of opportunity to see West Side Story live. So the movie was about the only thing I had. And you might guess that my big interest in it was Bernstein's music.
Right. Now, the best live performance I had ever seen was here at the St. Louis Muni Opera. Now, the Muni Opera has one of the largest stages in theater. It is literally the size of a football field. One of the problems I know that has been reported with staging productions, you know how they have the traveling productions during the summer?
Yeah.
One of the problems that has occurred with it is sometimes the stage is too big. So trying to fit things up into the scale proves to be the problem rather than trying to squeeze everything on to such a small stage.
Well, that would be just about right for Wagner's Ring, though.
I'll tell you what was really good to see on that stage, Camelot.
Oh.
Oh, you typically Camelot the stage is almost crowded, and when you're having things like the jousts and everything else that's going on in the forest, it's just cramped. But put it on that huge stage. Wow.
Yeah.
But this is not Men on Film, the podcast,
right?
So
this is the Babylon 5 or the Babylon. But no, this is the Babylon.
This is the Babylon
Project.
5 podcast.
The Babylon Project podcast.
Oh
my
God.
gosh. All right, well, moving right along.
Yes, moving along.
We have Art Kimbrough, who played Ray Gallus, the Zeta Squad commander.
Correct. In his only appearance.
Only appearance.
We've seen Zeta Squad a few times, but we haven't seen its commander yet.
Right. And he was also on Quincy, which comes as close to sci-fi as anything else in his credits.
Oh, you don't want me talking about Quincy?
No, we've been...
remember my clinical work?
Yeah.
For some reason, Quincy was the most popular show on the geriatric wing for the patients to watch.
Yeah, but don't forget now,
talk about irony.
We've been down this road before, several episodes ago, so...
All righty. Who else do we have?
Another one, Daniel Beer as Patrick. This is his only appearance. And I'm trying to think of who Patrick was. I don't...
Actually, a lot of these people, I believe, are crew members of the Cortez.
Oh, okay. And Miguel Nunez as Orwell. This is his only appearance on Babylon 5.
Right.
Orwell was the smuggler that helped Garibaldi secure some materials that he wanted.
Okay.
Yep. And Patty Toy as Ogilvy. She'll have 2 appearances on Babylon 5. Once in a previous episode, Voice in the Wilderness Part 1. She was the Psy-Corps representative.
All right.
And this episode. And she was in Alien Nation, an episode, and Quantum Leap, an episode.
Okay, and who was she in this episode?
She was Ogilvy.
Who is?
A Cortez officer. I believe first officer on the Cortez.
And last but not least to mention?
Sandry Grin as Terran, who has 3 appearances in the series.
Right.
He was... or will be in an episode Acts of Sacrifice as a Narn captain, and he'll also appear in The Exercise of Vital Powers as patient number 2.
Okay. And from the looks of it, he seems to be semi-retired. Not a great deal of information on him.
No, there isn't.
Initiating plot analysis.
Okay. Well, we start this off with a message for Sheridan to the swamp rat from Stinky.
Yeah. Okay. Kind of corny.
Kind of corny, but it makes sense with some of the dumb nicknames college, academy type kids throw out for themselves.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. I gotta say this. You know,
you
how
gotta
he's
get it
back,
out of your system.
I gotta get it, and it'll come back up again though. But the guy's sitting there and he's dictating the message, and I hate those boots. I'm sorry, the boots don't go with the uniform.
I think that was the point.
And he's got them sticking right in my face.
One of my friends in high school he was raised in Texas and wore those pointy-toed boots.
Oh, I got no problem with the boots. I just got a problem with him wearing them with that uniform.
Yeah, we don't have to check with JP to know those aren't quite regulation.
Yeah, those are not. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there. Hate the boots. And he's probably called Stinky because of those boots.
That wouldn't surprise me. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Yeah, they're on the way to Babylon 5.
Yes, they need some resupply and I guess repairs, maybe small repairs. Fuel,
seems like
whatever.
they didn't get enough repair from what's going to happen, but
right.
Yeah, the ship's name is Cortez.
Yes,
and
the Cortez.
It is one big ship.
Yeah, it is massive.
Not as big as Babylon 5. I remember some of the conversations online about being as big as Babylon 5. It's a ship. It's as big as... It's like, no. It's perspective, where it is relative to Babylon 5.
Right,
so,
yeah.
But as you said, it's massive.
They filmed it, and I'll tell you what, that little riff that they use musically every time the ship comes and goes, kind of got on my nerves a little bit after a while.
Sort of a little too fanfare-ish?
No, it was fine once, but then it kept coming back, and I just thought it was overused.
That's the musician in you. I have found my wife gets the same little pet peeve at times with pieces of music looped or overused.
Mm-hmm.
She's very sensitive to that as well. So, just a guess.
Well, see, and then I understand the idea of what we call leitmotif.
Yeah,
where there is a theme that accompanies a character. I mean, Star Wars is replete with it.
Right.
But in this case, I don't know.
Oh, that's mostly what the first soundtrack of Star Wars is.
Yeah.
It's nothing but that.
Yeah. And I mentioned Wagner earlier. Wagner was great for using leitmotif.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
So, at any rate, Susan's still hobbling around.
Yeah, well, that was a real broken foot. So they just play with it.
Yeah.
There's a few other injuries as the series progresses that will be worked into the story as well.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, if you remember Garibaldi having a broken arm.
Oh, yes.
In season 3. That was real.
Haha, jeez.
Walking through the station with Jack. I know it's used a lot these days, okay? And, BSG did it a lot.
Right.
That fact, they were quite known for it. But that kind of steady cam work, walking through the corridor, there's just something about it that I've always liked when it's done well. I mean, it makes you cringe when it's done badly.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's done well, it's like it puts you in, it just kind of, the way it pulls you into the action or into the exposition. And that's where, I guess that's what it is. Sometimes just droning exposition can make you want to rip your hair out.
Oh, yeah.
This puts action to it.
It does, and it allows the actors to have a conversation, and they cover a lot of ground while they're walking in these scenes.
Yes.
Yeah, they talk about Delenn and her change, and Jack meets her for the first time. Kind of has this funny look on his face when he first sees her.
Oh yeah.
And then as she goes by, he goes, "That's a Minbari."
Yep. It's great, and we start into some of the issues with Sheridan's job as well.
Yeah,
And I think we'll catch a little up with that a little bit further down. But
Yes.
But that's going to be sort of a driver for this episode.
Right. Switching over to Garibaldi for a moment.
Yes, his medical exam.
Yeah. And Dr. Franklin is telling him he's got to change the way he eats.
Right as Michael is planning to make some Bagna Cauda.
Yeah.
Which is a heart attack on a stick. Oh, the Bagna Cauda isn't, but the way you eat it is a heart attack.
Yeah.
It's an Italian fondue, garlic and anchovy based, lots and lots of olive oil.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of butter.
Right.
And if that's not bad enough, I've actually seen recipes that use heavy cream in it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It sounds like a heavy-duty meal.
It's a fondue sort of thing that you dip bread and different things in to eat.
Sounds good. I'd love to try it.
I have a friend, one of my wife's best friends makes it periodically. I think, is it Christmas time? I think it is that she makes it.
Oh, wow.
You had to get your thing out. I've got to get mine out. Franklin's diet storyline just annoys the heck out of me for some reason.
Really?
It has some funny moments.
Yes.
But the basic line, just the basic premise, for some reason just annoys me.
Oh, I kind of liked it myself. I thought it was funny.
I think it's a matter of too close to what I spent too many years doing for a living.
Oh, you put people on diets?
I was doing cardiac research. I was doing cardiology patient care.
Oh, I see.
I wasn't the MD. I wasn't the MD necessarily, obviously, but it was definitely representative of some of the stuff that we do.
Oh,
in some ways.
Huh.
And actually, you look at research today, and I still have to keep up on the research because I'm now on the industry side, somewhat involved at times, at least with the clinical science.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of what we learn, we realize later, we learn that it's wrong.
Yeah.
So it's just one. It's not the story. It's not the writing. It's not the acting. It's me.
I see.
So it's just one of those pieces that gets annoying.
Yeah.
So let's just jump from there back to the fun stuff. Jack and John.
Yes. Jack's
out on the rim, and it seems that Sheridan would much rather be there as well.
Yeah, well, so it seems, he's he acts like he is missing commanding a ship.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny that in the first 3 episodes he seemed just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this wasn't just his best friend. This was sort of his mentor.
Yeah.
And the idea of Jack getting to be out there having all the fun just kind of leaves Sheridan a little touchy about being tied to a desk.
Yeah, but didn't he say something about meeting aliens on the station? You didn't have to,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
This just doesn't seem to work for me logically.
No, there's no logic to it. He's simply feeling sorry for himself.
Yeah.
He's having a nice little pity party, and
yeah. And was he
he's going to need something to knock him out of it.
Was he ever crappy to Garibaldi too?
Oh gosh, yeah. A little bit later on in the story.
Yeah.
Really.
Well,
really.
Garibaldi comes to him. This was almost right after these 2 guys talked.
Mm-hmm.
And to report to him because Sheridan told Garibaldi, I want to know everything that goes on the station. And so it was apparently, petty theft.
When Garibaldi was doing it.
Yeah. And Sheridan just shut him down.
Uh-huh.
Now, I think if Garibaldi had been more in character on this, he would have just stopped reporting anything.
Yeah.
It's like, fine, whatever.
But getting back to where we're at now,
mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, we get a few good pieces of information. One, Explorer-class ships can build jump gates.
Yeah.
But 2, it seems that there is something out there in hyperspace. So there's definitely something unknown out there. A little bit of corroboration for Jakar.
Yeah, that kind of confirms what Jakar said. We already know there's something out there because it took out a Narn ship. So.
Right. Now, the only part that bothered me about that, he saw a ship big enough to blot out the stars, as he said, right?
Right.
It was 620 miles away, to put it in English units, 1,000 kilometers away.
Right.
Shadow vessels are big, but that's like saying, oh, I can see the Sears Tower in Chicago here from St. Louis.
Yeah, that's very true. However,
with an unaided eye.
Right. But, these guys are going to tell each other fish stories.
Yeah.
Okay. Either that or some writer didn't do his homework.
Yeah. Someone it's either a fish story or someone needs to pull out their calculator.
Right. So, yeah.
And by the way, Franklin is sticking Sheridan on a diet too.
Yeah. Well, what about Garibaldi? He wants that Bagna Cauda, and he's hired somebody to get it for him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's something that I haven't quite gotten the hang of yet. When regular supply runs, the constant coming and going of cargo ships, lots of stuff coming and lots of stuff going, lots of trade going on, all fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it's amazing how often and how conveniently the difficulty in shipping something comes up.
Well, if you're using official channels to move personal goods, and you're going through space, there's going to be limited space for things.
Right.
So, the cost to get something back and forth to take up space for a payload is going to be
it's not necessarily going to be cheap, but
right.
A bottle of olive oil and a block of cheese isn't that much space.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider some of the other stuff that they ship back and forth.
Yeah, but then it wouldn't be funny.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. I don't want to give up the humor.
Right. Because Orwell has been recruited by Garibaldi to secure these ingredients for him. And tells him it's going to cost him for that. And then Garibaldi, of course, he's on his diet, tells Ogilvy, I'm sorry, not Ogilvy, but Orwell, not to say anything to Franklin.
Right.
And then he says, oh, that's going to cost you extra.
Of course.
Mike says, you mean it's going to cost extra for you not to say something to somebody, right?
Exactly.
So.
You got to, keeps the mind on track.
Well, here's a guy who knows how to play the game. So anyway, you mentioned just a few seconds ago that Franklin puts Sheridan on a diet also.
Right.
And I just love the way Sheridan handled this. Okay. Roll the quote.
10 pounds?
Well, 10-pound gain isn't too bad. You could afford to lose it. Here's a list of foods I want you to avoid. No meat, low fat, lots of vegetables.
It's rabbit food.
Well, it's only for a little while, Captain. We'll get those 10 pounds off in no time.
Who's we?
Well, a doctor and his patient are a team, Captain. Don't you agree?
Sure. And since we're a team, why don't you do the diet part?
Brilliant line.
Yes. My thoughts exactly. You do the dieting.
So when is Franklin going to put himself on a diet? I mean, food plan.
I
mean,
don't know.
die with a T.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now we've got two on, and skipping over to Delenn, which is really, I mean, this deviation and one other interaction a little further down is really the only deviations from the A story on this episode.
Yeah, and this is obviously we're setting something up for a future episode.
One of the local Minbari on the station, apparently someone of some importance, is grilling Delenn, and the locals are rather concerned about what she is, or perhaps more accurately, what she is not any longer,
Right.
i.e. Minbari.
Tehran is representing apparently a group of, well, the group of
Local Minbari. Mm-hmm.
and just flat out tells her, what we don't know what you are, and we don't know if we're going to blindly follow you anymore.
Right. And as you said, this is setting up something in the future.
Yeah.
It won't be too much longer.
Tehran is telling Delenn that they would like to send a representative, or they're thinking about sending a representative to talk to the Great Council.
Uh-huh.
Which she says that's fine. The Great Council obviously already knows about Delenn's transformation.
Well, she said, oh, that's fine, but her look, she was facing away from him, was a little concerned.
I thought she was more disgusted.
I think it's concern, and here's the reason why.
Uh-huh.
She is already in a little bit of trouble with the Great Council for undergoing the change without their permission to begin with.
Yeah.
And she's been kind of warned as far as the implications of that as well.
Yeah.
So it's something that can come back to haunt her, I think, is what she's worrying.
Yeah.
What's going to be the price?
Yeah. But and then she's got other more important things to think about. So.
Yeah, definitely on that. And from that side of it, there's definitely some disgust.
Yes.
But back to dieting.
Yes, it's Susan's turn.
Except that's a little bit, and thinking about it is connected with my professional work.
Mm-hmm.
That annoys me about this, because one of the most irritating things in medicine, and it goes back to the days when everything was interventional.
Mm-hmm.
There was this tendency for docs to want to try to micromanage the patient, not beyond just the immediate care, but just micromanage the patient in general.
Oh yeah.
As far as general care is concerned, and it's that micromanagement that not only is annoying, but for me at least, it brings up a lot of ethical concerns as far as how far does the doctor's intervention ethically go.
Well,
I think that's the best way of describing it.
And I have a personal experience with a micromanaging doctor who my dad had congestive heart failure.
Right.
And the doctor gave him a prescription to help get rid of the extra fluid, but only had him on half the dose of the medication he should have had.
Mm-hmm.
Which, of course, Dad felt a little better, but he never really got better.
Okay.
Till Dad went to another doctor, and the other doctor said, well, you should be taking twice this much.
Right.
So, was this first doctor, was he micromanaging my dad to milk the cash cow, or what?
Well, sometimes it's, I know in some cases it is that, and frankly, it's based on often what gets the biggest reimbursement.
Yeah.
But the other side of it is too much intervention without really being able to understand the ramifications. And I guess another piece of it is the docs that I've always worked for, or that I've always worked with.
Mm-hmm.
I've had the good fortune of when I got my beginnings in the whole healthcare business to begin with, I ended up working for/with world-class cardiologists, and with that as my intro, I was able to stay with that the whole way.
Ah.
And when you're dealing with those kind of docs, the best of the best, one of the most frustrating things you'll see out of other doctors that you really have a little bit of bias against are these docs that take the attitude of, I'm the doctor, you just do what I say.
Oh, yeah.
Don't question me.
Yeah.
I mean, we wanted our patients to question, to challenge, to be involved, because we understood what our limitations were, and it was sort of a relationship. And Franklin just kind of, with this diet thing, and it's all coming together as we talk it out now.
Yeah.
Franklin, with this whole diet food plan thing, is throwing that whole relationship bit right out the window. My original suspicion is right. It's going straight to me and how it connects with my background and my work background. So at least we got that part right. Anyway, he wants Susan to gain weight.
Right. So we got Garibaldi who needs the vitamins to help him heal. We have Sheridan who's got to drop about 10 pounds. And now we have Susan, as you say, she needs to gain a little weight. She also has an iron...
Worst thing you can say to a woman.
Yeah.
You need to gain weight.
An iron deficiency. And, well, he's concerned that she's not eating enough of the right kinds of foods. So Susan says she is going to become the expanding Russian frontier.
Yeah.
And then Franklin
with
retorts,
nice
with very nice borders, yes. That is just priceless.
And from there, we go back to Jack, and, I don't know if he's just being intentionally ornery or if he's just that blind about it, but he just keeps rubbing it in subtly.
It's real subtle because it didn't strike me as him trying to do that. Really. It was just what he's talking about. Yeah. But there's them stupid boots again.
Yep. But he does say something that's pretty much prophetic.
Yeah.
Sometimes the adventure comes to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it reminds me of that Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times. And we're definitely coming into interesting times.
That's the truth. Yeah. You had mentioned about Garibaldi bringing him trivia. Well, now we've got Susan bringing it to him as well. And to use one of Susan's phrases, Sheridan's positively cranky.
Yeah. But you notice that he was not as rude to her as he was to Garibaldi.
I think that's probably because she didn't give him enough time to be, because she confronts him directly.
Oh,
gently.
She snapped him back real good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He like I said earlier, he's feeling out of place and just having a grand old pity party.
Yeah. She basically tells him, then resign.
Yep.
If you, we need someone who wants to be here. And if you don't want to be here, you need to let me know.
One of the best parts of this conversation with Susan is they end up talking a little bit about politics and politicians, and
yes,
talk about truth. The whole, well, here, let's play it.
I'll tell you one thing. If the primates that we came from had known that someday politicians would come out of the gene pool, they'd have stayed up in the trees and written evolution off as a bad idea. Hell, I always thought the opposable thumb was overrated.
I just love that one. The whole opposable thumbs bit.
Yeah. He's frustrated.
Understandably.
Yeah.
Well, from here, things start to pick up a bit. We get, first of all, our first view of hyperspace.
Yeah. Swirling red stuff.
Red shifted. It's all red shifted. And I guess we do get a little bit of a boom today. Apparently a power spike from the reactors causes some boom in the bridge, takes out navigation, and now the Cortez doesn't know where it's going.
Yeah, did it take out propulsion also, and they started to drift?
I think they just cut the engines. But it may have damaged the propulsion as well, at least temporarily. And in Straczynski's hyperspace, that's a very bad thing. If you think of space space outside of space, and Einstein's idea that space is folded and twisted all over the place.
Right.
A little bit of drift in hyperspace is a very long way in real space, or if I want to show off my geek cred, I could call it in space, but a little way is a lot.
Yeah, and there's no way of predicting exactly where you're going to wind up if you go off course. So apparently they send out a beacon.
Navigation in hyperspace is accomplished by a network of narrowband beacons between stargates. And if you get off that beacon, you're in a lot of trouble because you won't be able to find your way back.
Yeah. So,
which is, I guess, one of the things that makes being out on the rim in an explorer ship rather a dangerous thing. Because you've got to find a beacon and then follow it to somewhere
Yes.
So what they do is they do send out a distress signal.
Yes. Which it is picked up by Babylon 5.
Right. Just before that happens, I will have to say this. We get back to the diet bit for a little bit.
Wait.
Yeah.
Not a diet, it's a food plan.
Okay. Either way, the plate swap is funny. I will give it that.
It is.
It is hilarious.
It is.
The payoff is worth being annoyed in the setup. I'll admit it.
Yeah. That's just precious. I'll tell you what, though. Now, if I had my choice of the 3 meals, I would have to go with Garibaldi's.
Yeah, the meatloaf.
Yes.
Same here with me, probably.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, it's the Midwestern in me.
Meatloaf, mashed potatoes.
It is the Midwesterner in me.
Yeah.
You can't beat a good meatloaf. Though Susan's eyes, as she was staring at that plate of pasta, was priceless as well.
Oh, yeah.
And then getting caught by Franklin.
Yeah. As he walks by, and nobody said a word, they just passed it back. And,
Yep.
And,
Yep. And it's from there that we come back to that Mayday, it getting through.
Yeah. So Sheridan picks it up, and he's getting things ready to go. He's giving orders. He's telling everybody what to do. And if that doesn't tell him he's important, then I don't know what else would.
Yeah. Especially since we find out that no ship lost in hyperspace has ever been found.
Mm-hmm.
But on the plus side, I guess Babylon 5, from being in a good tactical location for it and having an awful lot of resources available, is probably in a better chance than anyone to find it. He just has to come up with a plan.
Yeah.
And when Franklin's checking out DeLynn while this is going on, he seems to get a little pushy with her as well.
Yeah, she didn't seem to be liking her exam at all.
Yeah, she's cranky too. She pushes right back. Hardly a surprise.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, she also spills the beans. Actually, she spills the Bagna Cauda, but...
Yeah, and she doesn't even realize she's doing it because
Yes.
she thinks the Bagna Cauda is a new delegation coming in from somewhere else.
That was a brilliant piece of writing. I'm sorry. I loved it.
Yeah. And the look on Franklin's face was just like,
The steam coming out of his ears.
Yeah.
Well, Sheridan does come up with a plan. He is going to use a lifeline of fighters. They're going to start out at 1,000 kilometers apart and expand out as a telescope and just use them as a sweep.
Yeah.
Which is actually a pretty clever plan, in my opinion.
Well, it's a variation on a lifeboat bridge.
To steer a ship from the old sailing craft days. Now, this is the one piece that, you kind of have to suspend a little bit of belief.
Right.
Because when we see that string of fighters out there, we see 6 fighters.
Yes.
In that briefing before they went out, that was a lot more than 6 pilots.
Yeah.
Now, I know I had mentioned this to you before, but since then, I think I've got a reasonable explanation.
Okay.
They telescope the fighters out and do a sweep, right?
Okay.
If they're throwing all of the resources into this, that many ships, are you going to throw out, and time is that critical, are you going to throw out one lifeline, one string of fighters? Or since you're dealing with 3-dimensional space, up, down, forward, backward, sideways, are you going to send out multiple strings of fighters? And it's just Zeta Wing that we're actually following because that's where the real story is.
Yeah, that could be. Could very well be. We never hear them talk about another wing of fighters, though.
No, because we're just focusing on the one story.
Right.
But there was a lot more people in that briefing than was actually out there.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay.
As they used to say on the old Lost podcast many years ago.
Yes. At any rate, they're going to space out starting at 1,000 kilometers, which is 600,
and then telescope out
621 miles, and then they'll telescope out. Now, 6 fighters at 1,000 kilometers would cover 3,726 miles, And so that's quite a big sweep there.
Well, maybe in our kind of counting, but when you're looking at from the perspective of space travel and the kind of velocities that spaceships or starships have,
Mm-hmm.
3,700 miles is really a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
It's not very far at all.
Well, it's a start.
But that,
yeah.
but remember, that is how they staged.
Right.
They telescope out from there,
Mm-hmm.
and they telescope out a lot. And don't forget the other thing, we're talking hyperspace where distances are much, much different.
Yeah. But their sensors are working though, and
Yep.
And that extends the range also.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, as they're telescoping out, as they're staging out and telescoping, we finally, as you mentioned, we meet the lieutenant commander in charge of Zeta Wing, Gallus.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he gets hit by a shadow vessel.
I know. I like.
What are the odds?
He was really briefly on there, but I really liked him.
Yep.
I would have liked to have seen him stay on for a while.
Yeah. And actually, Keffer gets knocked out too, frankly, but
yeah, but not killed.
He doesn't, but not killed.
Right.
It's almost like he's in the wake of whatever energies that are driving the shadow vessel or ripple out through hyperspace. But yeah, he gets taken out as well.
Yeah.
At least he's able to get some repairs done.
Yes.
And he does get contact with the Cortez.
Yeah, in quite a unique way, too. His ship is spinning over and over and over again.
Well, he gets radio communication established.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah, but he's shooting his laser in the direction the Cortez needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
And they figure that out and follow.
Yep. And eventually, like I said, he gets his communication back. They're able to talk. Okay, if the only problem with this is the other kind of a plot hole here. If the Cortez has its navigation back and they know where to go and they have a location to lock on to, a direction to go where they can lock on, why couldn't they have simply sent a tow for Keffer? It's minor.
Yeah.
I admittedly.
But then Keffer would not have gotten to be the heroic figure that he would have been by sacrificing himself.
True.
Yeah. And, it seemed like...
And more importantly, he's able to get a little more information on this mysterious unknown vessel in space.
Right. Yeah, he gets another look at that. But the Cortez apparently is damaged. There's a lot of people on that ship, and they want to get back to B5 before, I guess, anything else happens, too. So
yeah, so you can justify, but
yeah,
Sheridan is not happy about losing two men, but he's quite happy to get the Cortez and one of his best friends back.
Yes.
So, Bagna Cauda.
Yes.
Part of Mike's birthday. And I still say Franklin's exceeding his authority just a bit.
Yeah. Well, Orwell has secured the ingredients. And just as Mike is checking them out, looking them over, up walks Franklin.
Uh-huh.
And both of them, Orwell and Garibaldi, look like the cat that swallowed the canary.
Yep.
Until of course Garibaldi explains what this is all about.
He explains it. It's a way he honors his father.
Yeah. Well, his dad made him this dish on his birthday every year, apparently.
He comes up with a deal with Franklin.
Yeah. Franklin says, make enough for two. I'll mention that later.
All right. We get to one, I think, of the more beautiful pieces of this episode. I know I've dissed on it, but I do love the episode. And this part that we're about to get to is a big part of that. Delenn and Sheridan's conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I love the way it breaks the ice between them. I love the way it foreshadows her line about wherever we are is the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be very significant. The right place at the right time coming up in a future episode.
Yeah, well, let's hear it in Delenn's words.
Let's hear the whole thing in Delenn's words. Yes.
The molecules of your body are the same molecules that make up this station. And the nebula outside that burn inside the stars themselves. We are star stuff. We are the universe made manifest, trying to figure itself out. But as we have both learned, sometimes the universe requires a change of perspective.
That is just, it's beautifully written and it's beautifully delivered.
Yeah.
I mean, theologically, I may not agree with her pantheistic perspective, but it doesn't matter. There is a real truth. There's a real element of truth in what she says as far as being star stuff.
Yeah.
It is just a beautiful line, very well given. It's one of my favorite lines of the series.
Well, yeah. All of the atoms in the universe that are more complex than hydrogen are produced by stars.
By supernova.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. As we were talking about Kefir, he's got half-hour air left. He sees another shadow vessel, and he's able to backtrack it to find his way home.
Yeah.
One thing other to note, you get this dark feeling. You can feel the shadow vessels, apparently.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Well, we eventually find out that there's a reason for this.
They move with a lot of momentum.
Mm-hmm. But the feeling that they give you when you're near to them.
Oh, yeah.
There's good reason for that.
Yeah, yeah.
And with Gallus being killed, Kefir being promoted to his position, Kefir is determined to investigate this.
Yeah.
He wants to know what happened to his CO.
Yeah. You think he's going to find out?
Let's just say I do not believe this will end well.
Uh-oh.
Especially since Kefir was pushed onto the show by the executive management. And Joe Straczynski has a reputation of finding inventive ways of dealing with the executive management demands.
Oh.
I don't think it's going to end well. In the meantime, Michael and Franklin are busy giving themselves CAD, which is medical language for coronary artery disease.
I figured that out. I'll tell you what, and Franklin, he starts out kind of dipping his bread in the Bagna Cauda.
Uh-huh.
First of all, Garibaldi didn't make enough for 2 people. He made enough for more like about 6 or 8 people. Great big pot full of this stuff. Okay, and I'll tell you what.
Do you have Italian family?
No, German.
Okay, trust me. He was cooking for 2 there.
Oh, okay. Well, see, and when we do stuff like that with the German background, it's potatoes and cabbage. But I'll tell you what, the way Franklin is indulging in this, that he was poo-pooing the entire time, he's going to need his own food plan if he doesn't slow down a little bit.
Fair's fair.
Yes.
Okay. And we close it out with Sheridan at his desk working.
Yeah, and there's nothing on the desk.
His desk is clean. Yep, the pity party's over.
Yep.
And star stuff, he's thinking. He likes the line, too.
Well, and he was key in getting the Cortez back.
Uh-huh.
And so, now maybe he realizes that his position's a little more important than he thought it was.
I think he's just impressed with Delenn.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is around the time today they call shippers started making hypotheses. But okay, I'll grant you a little of both, but yeah, I think he's just beginning to become a little bit smitten, taken with Delenn.
Well, I kind of felt that Sinclair also showed feelings for Delenn too.
There were, but they weren't in this. They certainly weren't in the same sense.
No, they weren't, but they became closer as time went on.
Much.
Yeah. Now,
in their case, it was almost more of a mentor. It was almost more of a mentor-pupil relationship at points.
Yeah. I think though, it's hard to say, because Sinclair proposed to Catherine and before he was transferred off. So I don't know if Sinclair had stayed on the station, how could have things been different? Or do we even want to start?
I don't know.
Do we even want to start speculating in that direction?
I couldn't begin to speculate. That would take someone who's spent a little time digging through some of JMS's old comments. Maybe has some knowledge of some of the books and stuff that's been written on Babylon 5 in the past to figure that one out.
Yeah.
That's a hint for you fans out there. Anyway, that is A Distant Star.
Yep. And the whole point, the moral of the story would appear to be that Sheridan is satisfied that where he is where he belongs.
Yes. Wherever you are is the right place at the right time.
Because I'm going to admit that watching Sheridan on the Agamemnon and then get posted to Babylon 5, and then it was like, I don't think I'd want that. If I'm commanding a starship and you're going to beach me without giving me a promotion.
Right.
So I suppose, that we want to make sure that Sheridan feels he is where he needs to be.
Yeah. And this is also an opportunity to warm up. You get a little bit warming up to Sheridan out of this.
Oh, yeah. So at any rate, where else do we go with this?
I think we've talked this one pretty well. Is there anything particular to add that is on your mind that we haven't covered?
Well, yeah, I will say that before our discussion, this was one of my not on the top 10 list, or, not one of my favorite episodes, but, I understand it a little better now. So, I can certainly see things beyond the humorous aspects, which is probably why I like this more than anything.
Right. Now, next we have The Long Dark.
Yes.
This one actually was probably my least favorite of season 2.
Huh.
How do I put it? I'll save my conversation for later. It does give us a lot of background into the Babylon 5 universe. But it's just we'll just leave it that Franklin seems to have this consistent challenge with relationships.
Oh yeah.
So of the female variety.
Yes.
So I'll just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got The Long Dark. Then we have A Spider in the Web, which gives us a lot of background into the Mars situation.
Yes.
That we've talked about in and out over these mini episodes, with a very interesting surprise twist, and one of my favorite episodes of season 2. London! Soulmates.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll have to keep Soulmates, folks. I'm going to warn you. I made a mistake. I let Jim read the Babylon. I let Jim read that Centauri trilogy before Soulmates. So this will probably be a bit of a longer show coming up in about 3 more.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yep. So that's what we've got coming up in the short term, everyone.
Yeah.
In the meantime, send us your comments. Send us your feedback. You can give it by email to the lovely lady who is reading our news and headers and closers.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do it in writing, or you can attach it you can record a voicemail in whatever format you like and attach it.
Yes.
Or you can leave it on the web page or on the Facebook page. We'll get it any way you want to send it to us.
Yeah, that works.
And please, iTunes reviews. We love iTunes reviews.
We haven't gotten very many. Those of you that are listening, if you like what we're doing, you don't have to subscribe to the podcast in iTunes to leave comments or leave a review. 5-star would be nice, but be honest and let us know what you think.
Mm-hmm. Now, the reason the reviews are important is as we get more reviews, when people do a search on iTunes for something like, Babylon 5 related, there's not a whole lot of Babylon 5 stuff out there, or if they do sci-fi, it helps us be noticed. It helps us be noticed on iTunes. Well, that's always a benefit. It's a good way for you to help share the show with others.
Yes. Bring those reviews.
And until then, Jim, no boom today?
Well, a little boom, just a little one.
More of a power spike.
Okay, it was insignificant. No boom today.
But there'll be a boom tomorrow.
There's always a boom tomorrow.
Always. Always. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Podcast terminated. Thank you for listening to the Babylon Project podcast. You can email Raul and Jim at the Babylon Project podcast at gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at the Babylon Project Podcast. On the internet, we are at babylonprojectpodcast.wordpress.com. To subscribe to the podcast, you can find us on iTunes, or you can subscribe to the RSS feed on the webpage.